Srinivas sir, please unmute your mic. Srinivas sir, please unmute your mic.
Is this okay?
Sir, your voice is loud and clear, sir. Thank you, Kasturi, sir.
Yeah.
Srinivas sir, Raja sir,
Shravan sir, tell me.
Srinivas sir has muted his mic. Can you start the PPT?
Okay, sir. Good morning to one and all present here. Before we start this session, I would express my hearty thanks to all of the participants for taking out time and attending this webinar. I would also humbly request all the participants to mute themselves and refrain from writing on the screen during this session. Though you can post your questions and suggestions in chat window. Thank you. I, P. Raja, Electronics and Communication Engineering Department, would like to extend a warm welcome to all for this webinar.
77.
I would
Okay. आप कहाँ से बात कर रहे हैं?
Shravan sir? Hello, Shravan
Raja
sir?
sir, please unmute. Continue sir, continue.
Good morning to one and all present here. Before we start this session, I would express my hearty thanks to all of the participants for taking out time and attending this webinar. I would also humbly request all the participants to mute themselves and refrain from writing on the screen during the session. Though you can post your questions and suggestions in chat window. Thank you. I, P. Raja, Faculty of Electronics Communication Engineering Department, would like to extend a warm welcome to all of the participants of this webinar. I would welcome Honorable Secretary Madam Miss Rajashri Garu, Principal Sir, Dr. T. Venkatesaya Naidu Garu, Vice Principal Corporate Relations and Training and Placement, Mrs. Lakshmi Kalam Garu, Head of the Department, Sri Malla Jagan Mohan Rao Garu, and our esteemed speaker, Professor Dr. Kasturi Vasudevan, EEE IIT Kanpur, and all of the participants of this webinar. As a member of Rishi family, I would like to tell you about Rishi Institution that is located in the heart of the city near JNTUH Metro Station, Hyderabad. Rishi MS Institute of Engineering and Technology for Women was established in the year 2009 in the memory of Bharat Ratna Mrs. MS Subbalakshmi Garu. It is ISO 9001 2015 certified and ISO 1401 2015 certified. The Rishi Institution is functioning under the able stewardship and guidance of founder chairman late Sri P. Vaman Rao Garu. Former Director, Information Public Relations, Films and Tourism, Joint Secretary and Joint Secretary Andhra Pradesh Government, who formerly served as Chief Executive at Birla Group of Industries. And also, he was a chairman in many audit committee and a member of various committees on the board of HAL. The management of Rishi aims to contribute to society in pursuit of creating a professional management education center as the best place to enhance the abilities of learning skills in students at high level of excellence. I can proudly say that during the past 31 years, Rishi educational institutions have literally turned into a rising sun of knowledge and success, and most sort of institution among the women students. All this would be incomplete without the introduction of pillar of the Rishi group of institution, none other than our secretary ma'am, Miss Rajeshri Garu. She is one of the founder member of Rishi UBR Educational Institution, and also she is a Bharat, she is a member in Bharat Vidya Bhavan School Committee. She is one of the panel members of STS NET to produce film on education, art and culture for Manna TV. She is an achiever of Vikas Ratna Gold Medal Award from the International Integration Society in New Delhi. Along with the list of achievements, she is a socialist who promotes women empowerment, and she is supporting many orphanages in Hyderabad. I would also take the opportunity to throw some light on achievements of Rishi Institution. We have CAA membership for industry collaboration. There are ongoing IIIT Hyderabad research project on IoT and artificial intelligence machine learning within our Rishi premises. Rishi has MSME incubation cell under the supervision of which this year, out of 78 innovative ideas, 20 ideas are submitted to the Government of India on MSME funds. We are also final round of Smart India Hackathon for delivering an all India based hardware. 21 of Rishi students are building prototype in IoT and artificial intelligence in ISB program. Rishi also adds to the list of ACT Intershala South Zone 2019 award. We at Rishi also welcome ideas from outside to provide 100% guidance to take your ideas to the next level by giving right industry and advisory. Rishi, in collaboration with IIIT Hyderabad, have submitted research project for developing in artificial intelligence, IoT, machine learning in women's scientist scheme. Recently, we have conducted series of successful webinars on advanced robotics, Python, artificial intelligence, blockchain, Oracle PLSQL, GIT Hub, optical communications on 5G technology, deep learning and CNN, automated methods for classification of brain signals, etc. Today's webinar on single user massive multi-input multi-output systems. So coming on to multi-input single, what is massive multi-input multi-output system? Single user multi-input multi-output system is a multi-transmitter and receiver technology for wireless communication that all octates bandwidth of wireless access point to the single device. So single user multi-input multi-output system is typically compared contrast with multi-user multi-input multi-output system MIMO. So single user MIMO technologies also take use of MIMO functions such as spatial multiplexing or beamforming to direct and improve the signal strength. How does a massive MIMO works? Massive MIMO stands for multi-input multi-output. While it involves multiple technologies, MIMO can essentially be boiled down to the single principle: a wireless network that allows the transmitting and receiving of more than one data signal simultaneously over the same radio channel. What is the massive MIMO in 5G technology? Massive MIMO is seen as a key technology to deliver mobile 5G massive multiple input multiple output in an extension of MIMO, which essentially groups together antennas at the transmitter and receiver to provide better throughput and better spectrum efficiency. How does MIMO increases capacity? The MIMO advantages it is uses at least 2 times several antennas on the transmitter side and on the receiver side to transmit a single channel. For example, adding six antennas on the each side delivers the same capacity increases as the adding 100 times more power to single input single output channel. So today, to speak on this topic, we have with us a very esteemed and renowned speaker, Dr. Kasturi Vasudevan Garu. He had completed his education BTech Honors Department of E and ECE IIT Kanpur in the year of 1991. BTech thesis simulation study of release code modulation schemes. Dr. Kasturi Vasudevan Garu has been as an assistant professor, Department of EE in IIT Kanpur from July 2001 to December 2007. He is an associate professor in the Department of EEE, IIT Kanpur, January 2008 and October 2008. Professor, he has been working as a professor in the Department of EE, Kanpur, November 2018. His previous experience, Assistant Executive Engineer, CAD Villas Group, Indian Telephone Industries Limited, Bangalore, September 1991 to July 1992. He is a postdoctoral fellow at Mobile Communication Lab, EPFL, Lausanne, Switzerland, December 1999 to December 2000. He is an engineer at Texas Instrument Limited, Bangalore, from January 2001 to June 2001. Courses taught under his vision: Introduction to Electronics, Digital Signal Processing, Principles of Communication, Communication System, Statistical Signal Processing, Introduction to Signal Analysis, Communication Theory. So as a tutorial labs taken, Introduction to Electronics, Signals and Systems tutorial, Introduction to Electrical Engineering tutorial and lab, Principles of Communication tutorial lab. And Vasudevan sir authored some books in Digital Communication Signal Processing, Universities Press, 2nd edition 2010. And also Dr. K. Vasudevan sir authored Basic Electronics Problems and Solutions, NA Books, New Delhi 2018. Vasudevan sir also authored one Analog Communication Problems and Solution, NA Books and so on. So K. Vasudevan and Shivani Singh and Panikumar Reddy, coherent receiver for turbo coded single user massive MIMO OFDM with retransmissions. On April 2019, SCA lab code for Linux, SCA lab code for Code Ocean. Sir, today we are very privileged for getting this great opportunity to listen to you. Thank you. Over to you, KV sir.
Okay, thank you very much for the introduction. So let me just share the screen. Okay, I hope this slide is visible to everyone. Hello?
Visible, sir.
Yes, sir, it is visible, sir.
Yeah, okay. So I will be talking today on single user massive MIMO. So this work was conducted jointly with my PhD students, Fani Kumar Reddy, Gyanesh Kumar Pathak and Shivani Singh. So let us first give a introduction to single user massive MIMO. So what exactly does it mean? So basically, the main purpose of massive MIMO is to increase the spectral efficiency, or in other words, how many information bits you transmit in a given transmission. So this is also known as spatial multiplexing. How do I'm not able to get annotation here. Annotation is the okay. So are you able to see the mouse, the pointer?
Yes, sir. We are
Ah,
able to
okay.
see.
Yeah, so fine. So basically the idea behind spatial multiplexing is to increase the number of bits that we transmit in one transmission. So that is also the unit of spectral efficiency is bits per second per hertz or bits per transmission. So now, if you have a large number of antennas in the transmitter and the receiver, then the advantage here is that you can uh, transmit a large number of information bits independently through each of the transmit antennas. And so that is how we achieve this spatial multiplexing, and that is how we get improved spectral efficiency. Now the question arises that how can we have a large number of antennas in the transmitter and the receiver? So this is possible in millimeter wave frequencies. So in millimeter wave frequencies, the wavelength is very small. Therefore, the antenna size that is required is also small. So therefore, we can have a large number of antennas. Say, for example, if the carrier frequency is of the order of 100 gigahertz or 200 gigahertz, so correspondingly the wavelength will be very small and the size of the antenna also becomes very small. It will be of the order of millimeters. So even in a mobile handset, we can afford to have a large number of antennas. So yeah, actually, video is not required, I think, because it will reduce the bandwidth. So, is it necessary to start the video? Hello?
Okay, sir. Proceed, sir. Proceed.
Yeah, okay, fine.
Carry on.
So, yeah, so basically, since the antenna size is small, you can have a large number of antennas even in the mobile handset, and that is how we hope to achieve massive MIMO. Massive MIMO means you have a large number of antennas, and since we are talking about single user massive MIMO, so we expect, so what we are actually looking at is that both the base station and the mobile handset, both of them are equipped with a large number of antennas for the purpose of having increased bit rate between bit rate communication with each other. So that's the whole idea here. So that's why this is known as single user massive MIMO. And one point which I would like to make at this stage is that I have always stated that the operating SNR per bit is not known. So this is something that needs to be addressed by the companies that which build the mobile phones and so on. So this is one point I always keep insisting that the operating SNR per bit is not known. So in this talk, I will be dealing with the turbo-coded single-user massive MIMO. So that is, we not only have massive MIMO, but in order to reduce the bit error rate at the receiver, we are going to introduce a turbo code for this purpose, for the purpose of error correcting or error correction. So this is basically a rate half turbo code, and we are assuming that we are getting information bits. And as you know, turbo code, the bits are organized into frames. So the frame size of the data is LD1. And since this is a rate half code, so you note that each bit is generating 2 QPSK symbols. So it is basically a rate half turbo code. And for each information bit, you get 2 coded QPSK symbols. Now this goes to the multiplexer, so it combines all the bits and then it goes to a demultiplexer, and the bits are then sent through the massive MIMO situation. That is, so we are assuming that the transmitter is having n antennas, and we will also assume that the receiver has n antennas. So of course, this is not a restriction here. So we can always work with the case where the number of antennas in the transmitter and receiver are different. But in this talk, I will mainly focus on the case where the transmitter and the receiver have the same number of antennas. So this is a continuation of the system model. So this is a frame structure. So the total length of the frame is LD. So LD QPSK symbols. So LD1 QPSK is generated by encoder 1 and encoder 2 generates LD1. So total length LD is 2 times LD1. So now at the receiver, what are we doing? So again, as I mentioned earlier, we will assume that the receiver also has end transmit antennas. Okay, so here what we are going to do here is that we are going to discuss a new strategy of detecting the data. So what we are going to do is we are just going to assume that the receiver knows the channel matrix. Of course, there are ways to estimate the channel matrix, but mostly in this talk we will assume that the receiver knows the channel matrix H. So the received signal, the received vector Rk is pre-multiplied by the Hermitian of the channel matrix and average over K. K is the number of retransmissions here. So the idea behind retransmissions is that it improves the signal to noise ratio. But the downside of the retransmission is that it reduces the spectral efficiency. But then when you have a large number of antennas at the transmitter and the receiver, this reduction in the spectral efficiency can be tolerated. So what we do is after doing the averaging, we send it to the turbo decoder for further processing and we get the output bit stream here. So now the signal model at the receiver is the following. So the received vector is given by HK. So this is the kth retransmission. So the number of retransmissions is denoted by nRT. So we are assuming that the index k denotes the kth retransmission. So Rk is equal to Hks plus Wk. So this is the received signal. So here Rk is a complex vector n cross 1, Hk is n cross n channel matrix, Wk is the AWGN vector. The transmitted symbol vector is S, and this is taken from the, in our case it is a QPSK constellation, and the boldface letters denote the vectors or matrices, and complex quantities are denoted by tilde. And tilde is not, we are not going to use the tilde for denoting the symbols because the estimate of the symbols is given by S hat. So we'll have a tilde above the hat. So that's a cumbersome notation. So tilde has not been used. So, so the assumptions that we are making here is that the channel coefficients, that is HKIJ. HKIJ is a channel coefficient for the kth retransmission in the ith row and the jth column of this HK. So this is having a variance of sigma square H. The noise variance, this variance per dimension, that is the variance of the in phase part or the quadrature part or the real part or the imaginary part. And then we have these two properties we are assuming, that is the elements of HK are independent. So half of this will be n times sigma square H, and this is a Kronecker delta function. And similarly, the elements of the noise are also independent. So this is given by sigma square W into the Kronecker delta function. And IN is the identity, n cross n identity matrix. So what is the problem statement here? So the problem statement is to find out the which symbol vector has been transmitted given Rk. So if you go back to the signal model, so we want to find out S given Rk. So is there any efficient way of doing this? So there are many ways of doing this. So the theoretical solution is the maximum likelihood solution, which has got an exponential complexity. So you have to search amongst all the symbol vectors, all possible symbol vectors, and choose that vector which is closest in the Euclidean distance sense to the received vector. So that has got an exponential complexity, m to the power of n. The other straightforward solution is to invert the channel matrix. If you know it, you can invert it. But then this inverting a matrix for large values of n is quite complex. So it is of the order of n cubed. And also the drawback is that it leads to noise enhancement. So both these solutions are actually ruled out. So both these solutions are rolled out. However, there is a vast literature on what is known as sphere decoding. Okay, so in sphere decoding, what is usually done is they sort of construct a sphere around the received vector and choose those set of symbols. So instead of instead of searching over m to the power of n possibilities, when you implement a sphere or when you construct a sphere around the received vector of a certain radius, and then you search amongst all possible vectors within that sphere. That is what intuitively it means. So there are many ways of doing this. So I will not be going into the details of sphere decoding. And also it is not very clear once you do sphere decoding how you can do turbo decoding. So that whether it is whether it lends itself easily to error control coding. So that is also a question that needs to be asked. So anyway, so I will not be discussing sphere decoding here, though that is an option, and a vast amount of literature is, vast amount of research has been done in this area, but I will not be discussing that. So what I will be doing is the following. So I'm just going to multiply the received vector by the channel matrix, which is assumed to be known. Okay, so the channel matrix also can be estimated by training symbols. So that is not an issue, but in this work, I will mostly assume that the channel matrix is known. So this signal, we will call it as Yk. So Yk is equal to Fks plus Vk. So Fk is the channel Hermitian multiplied by the channel, and Vk is the channel Hermitian multiplied by noise. So now the main idea here is that you observe that the expected value of this Hk Hermitian HL, this is a identity matrix. So when you take expected value of this, you get an identity matrix, which is what we desire. So then the symbol vector can be easily extracted from the Yk vector. But unfortunately, we are not actually computing the expectation. So what we are doing here is we are just multiplying this Hk Hermitian with Rk. So this is not the same as expectation. So now how do you simulate or emulate the effect of an expectation? So the way it can be done is by using retransmission. So once you retransmit the symbol, so you'll have a series of Hk and HL. So when you take the average over the retransmission, the effect is the same as that of the expectation operator. And we will very nearly get an identity matrix. It will not be exactly equal to that, but it will be good enough for the turbo decoder to work. So that is what is our observation. So this work has not been done earlier. So it's a simple technique, but it has not been done earlier. So now if you look at the ith element of this Yk, so you go back to this Yk here. So Yk is a vector, n cross 1 vector. So you look at the ith element of this. So the ith element will look like this. So it is Fkii into the desired symbol Si. Now this is an interference component because of the other symbols, and because of the fact that when you compute this Hk into Hk Hermitian Hk, you will not get exactly an identity matrix. So this corresponds to the interference term, and this is a noise term, ith noise term. So this is for I goes from 0 to n minus 1. So now this Fkii, so if you expand this, this is what you get. So it is summation Hk, this is a kth retransmission. This is summation over all j. So Hk ji mod square. So it is a sum of the squares of all the channel coefficients in this range. And IKI is basically given by this Fkij into Sj. So these are the remaining symbols which cause the interference term. So the desired term actually here corresponds to the diagonal elements of this Fk matrix that is given by Fkii. And all the remaining terms of this Fkij, they contribute to the interference. So this interference term Iki is given by Fkij into Sj, and Fkij is given by this term. That is the cross terms of the channel coefficients. And the noise term is basically Hk star Ji into Wkj. So the proposed solution, so yeah, continuing that, so we see that for large values of n, IKI and VKI are Gaussian distributed. So this is because you can use the central limit theorem. So for large values of n, so this is basically a sum of identically distributed random variables. So you know that for large values of n, the sum of identically distributed random variables tends to a Gaussian distribution. So therefore, by using the central limit theorem, we see that this interference term and the noise term, they are very nearly Gaussian distributed. So since SI and WKI are independent, this IKI and VKI are uncorrelated. So so this IKI and VKI are uncorrelated. So that you can get it from here. So because IKI is a function of the symbols and VKI is a function of the noise. So since the symbols and noise are independent, so you can see that expected value of this into this star, IKI and VKI star, it goes to 0. So that is why we can say that they are uncorrelated. So this is what I have explained here. Expected value of IKI into VKI complex conjugate. So this is given by this term. So you can see that when you take the expectation inside the two summations, the expectations, they go to 0. That is because mainly because the product of these two expectations here, expected value of Sj into expected value of WKL star. So this goes to 0. So now let us define this term UKI star. So this is equal to IKI plus UKI. Yeah. So yeah, there is some disturbance, please. Yeah, so now when you take the expected value of the mod square of this term, UKI mod square, so because of the and the uncorrelated nature of IKI and PKI, so it basically reduces to the sum of these two expectations. That is the expected value of IKI square plus expected value of IKI square, because the cross terms goes to 0. So that is why equation. So So if you look at the noise power, so now we have to basically find out the value of these terms, expected value of IKI square and the expected value of VKI square. So, so if you compute the noise power, so it is expected value of, now you substitute the values of the two. So it will be summation of HK Mi star into WKM and summation of HK Ni into WKM star. So you can take the expectation inside, and so what you get here is that you can take these two summations outside, and you can make use of the fact that the channel coefficients and noise are independent. So you get the product of two expectations like this, and the channel coefficients themselves are mutually independent by assumption. And similarly, the noise terms are also mutually independent by assumption. So what you get is this term. So it is 4n sigma square h into sigma square w. Now we have to compute the interference power. So you substitute the interference value from the earlier equation. So this is what you get. So expected value of summation of this into the summation of this term. So once again, you take the expected value inside the two summations, you take the two summations outside. And if you make use of the fact that the channel, this F term and the S terms are mutually independent, so you again get the product of two expectations. So if you simplify this, then what you get here is expected value of this. So here we assume that the symbols are uncorrelated. So expected value of Sm into Sn star, that is equal to the average power of the constellation. In this case, it is the QPSK constellation. Delta k of, so this is a Kronecker delta function. So it signifies the fact that the symbols are mutually uncorrelated. So it is expected value of this. And so if you simplify this, if you take this using the shifting property of the Kronecker delta, so what you get here is this term, that is 8n into n minus 1 sigma h to the power of 4. So yeah, so this is the interference power that we get. So here we are assuming that the average power of the QPSK constellation is 2. Okay, it is the symbols are taking the values plus minus 1 plus minus j. So the average power of the QPSK constellation is 2. So now there is one more term remaining, that is this term, expected value of FKI m mod square. So this is what has been evaluated in the next step. So this has been evaluated here in this step. So again, you substitute for FKIM mod square. So this is what you get. And if you simplify this, again, you take the expectation inside the two summations. So what you get here is 2 sigma square h delta k of L minus j, and similarly you get 2 sigma square h delta k of j minus L. So these are again Kronecker delta functions. So you get 4n sigma h to the power of 4, which has been substituted here. So to get the final answer. So now you can substitute these values, the variance, the interference power and the noise power, you can substitute in this U dash. Okay, and you can get the variance of the total interference term, that is the variance of the noise plus the variance of the interference. So now we have to consider the effect of retransmission. So now we have to average over all the retransmissions. So we are assuming that the number of retransmissions is nRT, and so this YKI is what you get at the output of each term. That is what we have seen here. Yeah, so this YKI. So we have to now average over all values of the retransmission, that is K. So yeah, so once you do that, what you get is uh, Fi Si plus Ui. So Fi is what? It is basically the average of Fkii. So the Fkii that I have shown here. So when you average that, you get Fi, and Si is the constant over all the retransmissions, and Ui uh, is the averaged out total interference. So the interference due to the noise part and the interference and the distortion caused by the actual symbols, which is different from the desired symbol. So that is what is given here. Fi is equal to 1 over nRT Fkii, and Ui is the average over all the retransmissions. So now, what is the expected value of Ui square? So it is basically sigma square u divided by nRT. So what we are saying here is that uh, this basically all the interference power gets averaged out because of this retransmissions. So the interference power after averaging, this is equal to sigma square u dash divided by nRT. So you substitute for sigma square u dash from here. So from here you substitute. So what you get here is this term. So that is, you can call it as sigma square u. So now we have to define the average SNR per bit. So how do
Thank you, participants. Looks like speaker sir has some technical glitches, so he'll be joining back into the call. Please wait. Shravan sir.
Yes, madam. I'm calling him. 1 second. Madam.
All right, sir. Please check, sir. Thank you. Shravan sir.
Welcome back, sir. Vasudevan, sir. I think you are back.
Sir, make sir as co-host quickly so that he can share the PPT.
Yeah,
Sir,
are you
you're
able to hear me?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear, sir.
Hello?
Sir, we are able to hear you, sir. And your screen share is also visible.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Sir, we can hear your voice, sir. Hello.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir. Your voice is audible. Please carry on, sir.
Hello? Hello?
Sir, speaker is muted, I think, sir. Can you just call him and let him know? His mic is working, but speaker is muted.
Hello?
Sir, carry on, sir.
Okay, so we have to define the average SNR per bit, okay, for each receive antenna. So for that, what we need to do is that we have to first define the average signal to noise ratio. which is basically the expected value of the total signal power divided by the expected value of the noise power. So in other words, what we need to do is we have to go back to this equation. That is a received signal model that we had discussed earlier. Yeah, so we have to go back to this, the first equation. So so for the ith receive antenna, or for one particular receive antenna, we will be getting the signal component, which is the product of the relevant row and the column of this, okay, plus the noise term. So this we are calling it as a signal component, and this is the noise component. So we have to take the expected value of the modulus square of the signal component to get the signal power, and then we have to take the expected value of the modulus square of the noise component to get the noise power. So that is how we define the signal to noise ratio. So that is what we are having. So it is the signal power is summation j going from 0 to n minus 1, hk ij into sj, the mod square of this term. Okay, so this gives us the total signal power, and this is the noise power. So this is at the ith receive antenna. Okay, so and we will show later on that the amount of information contained per received sample per receive antenna is given by 1 by 2 nRT. So the average SNR per bit can be obtained by multiplying this average SNR by 2 nRT. So this we will see later on. So now you simplify this term. So if you make use of the fact that the channel and the symbols are independent, so what you get here is 2n sigma square h into 2 into 2 nRT divided by 2 sigma square w. So this is how you define the average SNR per bit. So now from this equation, what you can do is you can get the relation between the value of sigma square w divided by nRT. So sigma square w divided by nRT is 4n sigma square h divided by 10 to the power of 0.1 SNR AVB. So this is your SNR AVB. So in decibels. So so this sigma square w divided by nRT is just equal to this. So now what is sigma square u? So sigma square u, as you know, is given by this equation. So sigma square u is given by this equation. So it has got a sigma square w divided by nRT term, and then it has also got this term. So so now if you substitute for sigma square w by nRT from here, so what you get is the following. So so this is equal to 4n sigma square h. So this is basically a constant term. So for a given signal to noise ratio, and the interference term here reduces. With increasing retransmissions, you can see that the interference power reduces. So this term is a constant, and this term, the second term, reduces with the increasing number of retransmissions. So this is the whole idea behind this. This is a key step here in this work. So we have shown that the interference power reduces with the help of retransmissions, whereas this noise power remains the same. And this is basically because the way we have defined the average signal to noise ratio per bit. So next we move on to the turbo decoding. So after getting the YIs, so you collect all the YIs after averaging, and you send it to the two decoders, decoder 1 and decoder 2, and they are interconnected by the interleaver and the deinterleaver. So the decoder 1 takes the samples y0 to yd1 minus 1, and the decoder 2 takes the remaining samples, that is starting from ld1 to ld minus 1, and we have already seen that ld is equal to 2 times ld1. So the BCGR has got the following components: the forward recursion, backward recursion, and the computation of extrinsic information, and the final a priori probabilities after several iterations. So the turbo decoding algorithm is the following. So if you denote the number of states in the encoder trellis by S, and Dn is the set of states that diverge from state n, Cn is the set of states that converge to state n, and alpha is the forward sum of products, and beta is the backward sum of products. These are time I and state n. So the forward sum of products can be written as follows. So alpha dash I plus 1, this is equal to alpha im. So this is gamma, this is a gamma term which I will define later on. And these are the a priori probabilities of the symbol corresponding to, this is a symbol at time I, that is transiting from state m to state n in the encoder trellis. So this is the initial condition, alpha 0n is equal to 1. And this is a normalization step. So without this, the turbo decoder will have numerical instability. So this step is required for maintaining numerical stability of the BCGR algorithm. So this PSBIMM, this is the a priori probability that is obtained from the previous decoder. Okay, so in the beginning of the first iteration, this takes the value half. Okay, and later on, this takes the value which is obtained from the other decoder, that is decoder 2. And this gamma 1 is actually a fixed quantity, that is e to the power of minus yi fi smn divided by sigma square u. So all these quantities are known. Fi is computed by averaging. Because we are assuming that the channel is known, and sigma square also, sigma square u, this is also known. So we have already computed this a priori. So similarly, the backward sum of products, so that is beta dash in, this is given by beta I plus 1 into gamma into the a priori probability, and this is the initial condition, because the beta is starting from the end of the frame, whereas alpha is starting from the beginning of the frame. So these are the two conditions, and then beta in is equal to beta dash. So this is a normalizing step which is necessary for the stability of the algorithm. So finally, if rho plus n is the state that is reached from state n when the input symbol is plus 1, and rho minus n is minus n is the state that is reached from state n when the input symbol is minus 1. So the extrinsic information from decoder 1 to 2, this is calculated as this calculated by this step, that is G norm I plus 1. This is alpha, beta and gamma. So you basically accumulate all the transitions that correspond to a plus 1 and all the transitions that correspond to a minus 1, and then you add them up over all the states. So that is how you get this equation. So this is for detecting the extrinsic information corresponding to the bit at time I corresponding to plus 1 or minus 1. So this is again normalized to get the probabilities, because these are actually the a priori probabilities that are fed to the other decoder. So the sum of these two has to be 1. So that is why you normalize this. And Then similarly, you have the map equations for the second decoder. So the only difference is that instead of gamma 2, instead of gamma 1, you have gamma 2, where gamma 2 is given by this equation. Okay, you have to change the time index here, and this is what you get. So finally, after several iterations, you get the final a posteriori probabilities of the ith data bit. So these are the a posteriori probabilities. So it is given by g norm I plus into f2 I plus and g norm I minus and f2 I minus. So these are already defined here. G norm and f1 is given here. So similarly, you can define your f2. So G norm is defined here. So yeah, so finally after several iterations, this is a final estimate of the ith data bit. So if this probability is greater than this probability, you decide in favor of +1. Otherwise, you decide in favor of -1. So next, so that completes the turbo decoding. So next we would like to discuss the channel capacity. That is the reasoning why we are assuming that each received sample for each receive antenna contains 1/2 NRT bits of information. So the derivation is the following. So let us start from the basic derivation of the channel capacity. So you have a complex valued signal Ri, which is given by Xi plus Wi. So we know that the channel capacity is given by C is equal to log to the base to 1 plus SNR. So this is over over a complex dimension. That means complex dimension means two parts. That is the real part and the imaginary part. So these are the number of bits per transmission. That is the maximum possible bits per transmission that is allowed for this given signal to noise ratio. So the SNR is defined as expected value of Xi square by expected value of Wi square, which is PAV dash divided by 2 sigma square W. Sigma square W is a noise variance per dimension. So over 2 dimensions, it will be multiplied by 2. So now what we are proposing is the following. The channel capacity is additive over the number of complex dimensions. So in other words, the channel capacity over n complex dimensions is equal to the sum of the capacities over each complex dimension. So this is a very important statement here. Okay, so which needs to be digested. So here we are assuming that over each complex dimension we are transmitting independent information. So that is what we are achieving by having massive MIMO. So we are increasing the number of dimensions over which we transmit the information. So that is how we are getting the increase in capacity. So that is what the first proposition states. And the independence of information implies that the bits transmitted over one complex dimension is not the interleaved version of the bits transmitted over any other complex dimension. So, so this is the first proposition of the channel capacity theorem. So this is illustrated here. So we are actually having a number of independent links, m independent links. Okay, so this is what we get in a massive MIMO system. So we are getting m independent links here in a massive MIMO system, and we try to transmit independent information over all the independent links. So if the C1 is the capacity of the first link and so on, Cm is the capacity of the last link, then the total capacity at the receiver is summation of Ci. Then the second proposition. So in the first proposition, we have seen how to combine the information. So how the information is getting combined at the receiver. So we have seen that it is the sum of all the capacities. So similarly, the converse rule is also applicable. So if C bits per transmission are sent over n complex dimensions, then it is reasonable to assume that each complex dimension receives C by n bits per transmission. So this is again a very important proposition. So because in a massive MIMO system, how many bits of information are we transmitting? See, if you have an n cross n system, then we have already seen that each QPSK symbol contains half a bit of information. Because each information bit generates 2 QPSK bits, so it is reasonable to assume that each QPSK symbol contains half a bit of information. So now we are transmitting n QPSK symbols over n transmit antennas. So how much information are we transmitting in one transmission? One transmission means it involves all the transmit antennas. So that will be n divided by 2, because each transmit antenna is transmitting half a bit of information. So n transmit antennas will transmit n by 2 bits of information. But now the problem here is that we are repeating each symbol nRT times. So because of that repetition, in each transmission, each QPSK symbol contains 1 by 2 nRT bits per transmission. So over all the transmit antennas, you'll get n by 2 nRT bits in one transmission. So the total information that is transmitted in one transmission is n by 2 nRT. And now because of the division of this information, because of proposition 2, this n by 2 nRT bits of information are getting divided over n receive antennas. So each receive antenna will receive n by 2 nRT divided by n. So it is 1 by 2 nRT bits of information. So that is how we get each receive antenna receives 1 by 2 nRT bits of information per received sample. So that is how we get that thing. So this is just an explanation for that. So see, the total amount of information transmitted is C, which is summation of Ci, and at the receiver, because of proposition 2, the information is getting equally distributed. On the average, the information gets equally distributed over all the receive antennas. So it is C by n bits per receive antenna per sample or per transmission. So now we extend the channel capacity to our case. So this RKI is a receive sample per receive antenna per transmission. So this is a signal part, this is a noise part. So we are assuming Xi is given by this, Wi is given by this. So the average SNR at each receive antenna is this. And since we have already proved that the information at each receive antenna per transmission is 1 by 2 nRT bits. So this is the SNR for 1 by 2 nRT bits. So for the SNR per bit is given by this divided by 1 by 2 nRT, which is this. So it is basically SNR divided by C. So now what we are going to do is we are just going to substitute this in the channel capacity equation. So the C is equal to log to the base 2 of 1 plus C times the average SNR per bit. So this is the important contribution of my work here. So we are actually going to show that even in the case of fading channels, the minimum SNR per bit for error-free transmission is identical to AWGM channel. So it is minus 1.6 dB. So this is what we get here. So this is the same channel capacity that we have seen here. So this is the same capacity. So here instead of SNR, we are writing this in terms of the average SNR per bit. So in terms of the SNR per bit, the capacity is like this. So if you rearrange the terms, this is what we get. So as C tends to 0, average SNR per bit tends to minus 1.6 dB. So this is an important contribution of this work. So whereas it is well known that the minimum average SNR per bit for AWGN channel is minus 1.6 dB. So what I have shown here is that the same is also true for fading channels. So that is a very important contribution here. And that is why I always keep insisting that one should always specify the operating SNR per bit, because then you know how far away you are from the limit. So that is why it is very important. So now these are some of the simulation parameters. So LDO1 we have taken as 512. N is equal to 1. The number of antennas is 1 cross 1, 16 cross 16 and 512 cross 512. And the number of retransmissions is 1, 2, 4. Number of frames is 10 to the power 5 and 10 to the power 6. And the number of iterations is 8. So this is the 4-state encoder. So it is given by this. So the spectral efficiency is given by n by 2 NRT bits per transmission. So as you can see, as n increases, the spectral efficiency also increases. So these are the plots for n is equal to 1. So you can see that when you increase the number of retransmission, the bit error rate increases. So these are the results for 16 cross 16. So again, when you increase the number of retransmissions, the bit error rate improves. And there is not much difference between 2 retransmission and 4 retransmission. So this is the case for 512 by 512 case. So again, you see the bit error rate performance is not getting affected. And also there is not much difference between 2 retransmission and 4 retransmission. So again, this is a very positive result. Now, how do you implement a massive MIMO? So as you can see, in a massive MIMO system with n cross n transmit and receive antennas, see, the problem here is that in a realistic implementation, the number of channels that you have to estimate becomes equal to n square. So in order to reduce the complexity of channel estimation, what we can do is we can partition the n cross n MIMO, massive MIMO system into smaller MIMOs, either 4 cross 4 or 8 cross 8, and assign a different carrier frequency to this set of antennas. So you can have different carrier frequencies, and all these antennas will be transmitting independent data. So now the advantage of the system is that the number of channels that you have to estimate in a 4 cross 4 system is 16, or 8 cross 8 is 64. On the other hand, if you directly have a 512 cross 512 system, then the number of channels you have to estimate is 512 square, so which is very large. So in order to make the complexity manageable, so this is what we are proposing to implement the massive MIMO system. And this is the frame structure that we have proposed for implementing a massive MIMO system. So this is a frame structure for implementing a 4 cross 4 or 8 cross 8. So that is how we get. So I won't be going into the details. Those who are interested can look up the references which I will be providing. And this is the transmitter and the receiver structure. So again, you can look at the references. And again, here in this case, for a 4x4 MIMO, so we can see that these are the bit error rate results for the estimated and the ideal case. So ideal means the synchronization and the channel estimation is assumed to be ideal, and otherwise it is estimated. So you can see that there is just not much difference in performance. It's about 1 dB performance. This is 4 dB and this is 3 dB. This is for 4 retransmission, and similarly for 2 retransmission. So this is the ideal case and this is the estimated case. So again we can see that it is quite close. It is about half a dB. So again here and here the difference is just half a dB. So we can see that the accuracy of the estimates is quite large. So I won't be going into the details of this. So again, this is for an 8x8 system. So we can see that again we are getting good results here. And this is the probability of erasure result. So erasure means when you are not able to detect a frame. So when you use the training symbols, you should be able to detect the presence of a training. So when you are not able to detect the presence of training symbols, it is referred to as an erasure. So this is a probability of erasure. So you can see that for a 4x4 MIMO, with increasing retransmission, the probability of erasure is increasing. Okay, so and also we have compared the probability of erasure simulation and theory. So we can see that simulation and theory is matching exactly. Again, this probability of erasure for 8x8 system. So again, you can see that probability of erasure increases with retransmission, and it is also matching with the theory. So future work, we can do pre-coding. That is one possibility. So I won't be going into the details of that. So these are some of the references of our work. So this completes the talk. So if there are any questions, you please speak out. Instead of writing on the chat, you please speak on the mic.
So there is a question, what algorithm is used for channel estimation?
Yeah, it's getting already past an hour. So,
Sir,
yes.
what algorithm is used for channel estimation?
Any questions on this? So the most important point here is that we have proved that the minimum average SNR per bit for error-free transmission is identical to that of AWGN channel, which is minus 1.6 dB. So that is the most important contribution of this work. Yeah, any questions, please? It will be better if you can speak on the mic instead of writing on the chat so that everyone can hear.
Sir, what algorithm is used for channel estimation?
Any questions? So should we end this talk here?
Sir, give him a call, sir. Seven, sir, give him a call. and
Okay,
tell
okay.
him that his speaker is off.
Okay, okay, madam. Okay.
Hello. Hello, should we end this talk here? Can I leave the meeting or? Hello. No, it's not muted. No, my speaker is full. It is showing full. Yeah, I'm not able to hear. My speaker is full.
Shravan,
Sir, no,
hello.
speaker
Jagan sir,
is on.
Shravan
It
sir
is
is
on
speaking
and
on the
it is
phone
showing
with Kasturi sir.
100%.
Okay.
Speaker is showing 100%.
Because he is unable to hear us, sir.
Yes, yes.
Lakshmi ma'am,
Yes, sir.
sir is saying that his speaker is good, but we are not able to hear. He is
That's
not
fine,
able to
sir.
hear
Just let him know that the questions are there in the chat
chat
box.
box.
He can just answer.
Vasudevan sir? I think.
Sir is checking questions, I think.
Sir is
Sorry,
checking the
checking.
question.
Let him
Yes,
answer.
yes. Yes, yes. ఏంటన్నా ప్యాంట్ కావాలా
Kasturi sir, can you hear us? There must be some technical glitches, sir. Not sure why he's unable to hear us. Shravan sir, we'll do one thing. Let's have the questions in the document
Hello,
and then
hello.
we will send it to the sir.
I think sir is
Hello.
checking his speaker.
Yes, sir, audible. Sir, Vasudevan, sir.
Hello. Okay, maybe you can post your questions on the chat box, and maybe I'll try to answer. So there is one question: what would be the cost of transmission to cover 1 million customers? So actually, this is beyond the scope of this talk. So, is it a standard LS or MMSE algorithm? So this is not LS, or this is neither LS nor MMSE. So because we are multiplying the received signal with the channel with the Hermitian of the channel matrix. So it is neither LS nor MMSE. So are you able to hear me? So I have answered two of your questions. Yeah, channel estimation we have used LS. The actually yeah the channel estimation matrix is known to us because the training is known. So what we are doing is we are multiplying the received signal vector with the channel estimation matrix. So it is basically an LS method. It is not MMSE method. So for channel estimation, we have used least squares because that is the simplest possible algorithm. MMSE is not possible because that requires knowledge of the noise variance and the interference variance. So that knowledge is required. So how will the receiver know it? So whereas for the LS case,
Continue.
the receiver does not require any knowledge of the noise variance or the interference variance. So I have answered some of the questions. Okay, so does this close the session? So can I leave the meeting or?
Jagan sir,
Yes. Hello.
speak few words about today's seminar, sir.
Yes. Honorable Secretary, Madam, respected Principal, Vice Principal, and our most valuable guest, ladies and gentlemen. I am Jagan Mohanra Malla, HOD EC Department on behalf of Rishi Institute of Engineering and Technology for Women. And the entire team, let me call it frequently, of a webinar on single user massive MIMO. And here we observed clearly turbo decoding technique and BCSR algorithm and its iterations. So thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. These are very so much keywords for the research. And once again, special thanks to Professor Kasturi Vasudevan from IIT Kanpur for gracing your important work and sharing with us your finding and opinions today. We would like to acknowledge our gratitude to Professor Kasturi Vasudevan for exposing his the theory of single user massive MIMO. I can proudly state that a very few persons in the world are performing the research in this area, and you are the one of the very renowned among them. Our principals are and our research enthusiasts are very much interested to hello and to perform the research on this topic, and we request your guidance. I would be very thankful to you for considering our request to ignite our minds. We are all inspired by your great words Finally, I would like to thank this opportunity to place and record our uh, principal and entire team. For the perfect support, I also extended my thanks to attendees success of this event. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I request all the participants to give your valuable feedback. The feedback link is posted in the chat box. So I request all the participants to click on the feedback link and enter the feedback. And I think by today's evening 8 o'clock, the link will be expired. So all of you, please give your valuable feedback. Lakshmi ma'am, over to you.
I thank Speaker Sir and the whole team of ECE, especially HOD Jagan Sir, for taking the initiative and having the great session. I hope participants have a great takeaway today. And with that, we will be ending the today's session. Thank you, Shravan Sir, Srinivas Sir, Raja Sir, for the great coordination and hosting.
Thank you, ma'am.
Wonderful to have all the participants in the session today. Thank you all.
Thank you, madam. Thank you very much. Okay, now I'm ending the session. Thank you once again. Thank you to all of the participants for making this event and session a grand success. Thank you.